If you missed the 4-hour live stream for overclocking in our hashtag RIPJAY, hashtag RipPaul stream, following up our critically acclaimed hashtag RipLTT stream, you missed a lot because KINGPIN joined in for a bit in chat. Yes, it was the actual KINGPIN. We verified it with EVGA live during the stream. And Jay was in chat. Paul or Paul's wife, I'm not sure, one of the two, was on Paul's account during the stream, joining in on chat. And Paul just got his own NVLink bridges. So now, looks like the battle is really just getting going, even though we tried to end it early by taking #1 on the 3D Mark Times by Extreme Hall of Fame for now. Wait a minute, Jay just placed a score 101 points higher than ours while we were filming this video. So we're going to come at this with a lot more mods next time, but it's still important to go through the recap of all the hardware for the last stream so that you get up to where we are now, and then check back for the modded version of this later. Before that, this video is brought to you by PowerColor's Red Dragon Vega 56, which is now below MSRP on Newegg at $380 with a rebate from the 28th to the 30th of September. When we first tested Vega 56, we found the card competitive and fun for tweaking and modding, and now that it's back in stock, it's worth consideration. Vega 56 also comes with 3 free games, including Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Star Control, and Strange Brigade, while supplies last. Learn more at the link below. KINGPIN says, I'm benching with Jay. What? How is that fair? How on earth is that fair? 14,862, that's good. 11,421. You know, I wanted to, that's the same exact score as last time. That's consistent. If you don't know who Jay is, there he is. I'm not. No idea why Vince said that. I think he's trolling you. I don't know who to believe. Before we get into all the overclocking numbers, the BIOS settings, the GPU settings, all that stuff, we did have a secret weapon in here, and I'll get to that too. Actually, a couple of secret weapons. But the bench itself was the primary weapon, and this thing is one of the craziest benches we've ever built. It could certainly be better. We could do more with liquid cooling on the GPUs, but just to point a few things out, the hardware used for this stream, so we have a super fat radiator. It's a 360 rad. And I just threw whatever fans we had available on it. So we've got a Sunon maglev fan, which is running at 3,000 RPM right now. In fact, it's blowing so hard that I can feel the air all the way over here, about 10 feet away. And then maybe 10, 12 feet away, one of the cardboard boxes on our set shelf is moving from the wind. So a lot of airflow going on the bench. 2 Corsair ML fans are on there as well with the Sunon fan. So all of our heaviest duty cooling is on the CPU, and the reason for that is because we have trouble getting this 7980XE to stabilize at anything higher than 4.8 gigahertz. So having all that cooling helps us get to 4.9 on a couple cores, but not all. Jay has us handily beat there. His CPU goes up as high as 5.1, although he and I were talking, we're both experiencing concerns of potential CPU quality degradation at this point. But his CPU definitely goes higher. He can make up a lot of points there. Our memory is helping us out too. We've got G-Skill Trident Z kit set to 4,000 megahertz, so it can do 3,600 is the XMP rating, but we've got it to 4,000. We'll go over those settings later. Then, of course, the actual star of the show was the NVLink bridge and the GPUs. So for this, we have an EVGA XC Ultra card that is unmodified completely. There's no shunt mod or anything. Then on the front card, we have that set up with our hybrid cooling solution, which is just it's the only radiator that would fit that I had. It's a Be Quiet Silent Loop 280. We used it for the Titan V as well. And that's hooked up on the GPU core. The memory, so when we checked during the stream, you check with thermocouples and then validate it with something like an IR, just an IR gun for the temperature. And as long as it's a black body, you don't have any emissivity issues, then you can get a pretty accurate measurement. It's not like it's reflective copper or something like that. So just taking readings with a somewhat accurate IR gun or thermocouple, we get about 50 degrees Celsius on the hottest memory module when it's under load. And that is something like 20 or 30 below stock with the stock NVIDIA cooler. So we did pretty well on cooling the VRM and the RAM. And that is because used as the Verge would call them, tweezers, to hook up a 120 fan to the back. This is a Gentle Typhoon fan. It's known for its reliability, but it's okay for airflow too. So that's shoving air into the left half of the VRM for both cards. It's also getting air over the memory modules where we need it. We have just an Octa 140 up here as exhaust, we have a Nocta 140 in the front for intake into the VRAM, and then the GPU cooling for the second card is hooked up with two ML140s, and those did a decent job, but at this point, the next thing we need to do is probably fill a bucket with ice and chill one of the radiators. So whether that is the GPU or the CPU radiator, not sure, or both, maybe buy an actual big, like, proper cooler, like you would take, I don't know, to the beach or something and fill that with ice. That's probably the better way to go, and then liquid cool both cards. Because right now we're being held back most by the EVGA card, which is air cooled, and while the card is fine, it's getting hot for what we're doing. And that's because we have our secret weapon on it, which is a BIOS mod. So here's the deal with that. This card by default goes to a 130% power offset. So stock, it's plus 130%. For the power target. We worked with the XOC community, and I believe so did Jay, and both of us got a VBIOS build that goes to 154% offset. So the core gets pretty damn hot. It's 70s, 80s, depending on what test is running, how long it's been running, and that impacts clocks heavily because NVIDIA's boost algorithm, I get, or their boost stepping, really, it's a lookup table. The boost lookup table kind of freaks out once you get past 28 degrees Celsius, and it starts downstepping all the way. So you drop clocks at like 28, you drop clocks at temperatures all the way up until 63, 71, 79, so forth. So the colder we can get this card, the better our scores will be, so we'll be able to retaliate once Jay beats our score at the top right now. We have a few other things too. So we've shunt modded the worst card we have, which is the Founders Edition card. The FE card pushes about an 850 offset on the memory clock, and we need to go and look for Delta clocks, find like a better setting for it, but 850 is its max, not necessarily the best. And the core only offsets, it's a bit below the EVGA one. So the worst card is dragging both down because it's SLI. And so we shunt modded the worst card, and we can show some shots of that, but we've got liquid metal on the shunt resistors. So the shunt resistors currently have a bit of liquid metal on it. You should be careful with this. If you put way too much on there, it can, one, drip off and short other components and destroy the PCB, or if you put it all over the solder joints, you can actually cause it to fall off. But we only leave it there for benching, so it doesn't really matter for us. Clean it off afterwards. The better way to do this would be to piggyback solder a like 3 milliohm shunt resistor on top of the 5 milliohm resistor. But we've got liquid metal on there for now, it works fine. So we put that on both of the shunt resistors, and that helped us a bit with the power target, but still kind of limited on the GPU side. So that is where we get into the CPU overclocking, which fortunately we're using a high wattage power supply. So the 7980XE with 2 GPUs and all these fans, it's pulling north of 1,000 watts for the whole thing. So we have a 1600 watt AX1600i on there, and I'll show you the BIOS settings too that we used for getting that top score on 3D Mark. Here are the scores then, to recap those. We ended up at 14,367 after getting some help. Before getting help, pretty much entirely on my own, we were at 14,215-ish. And then KINGPIN jumped into chat and in all caps said, "Dude, don't tell me you forgot about the NVIDIA control panel settings," and then proceeded to explain to us that we needed to change a few things. So this is, I gave Jay all of this advice too, so that it's fair. It's still the two of us against each other without too much puppet mastering by KINGPIN. So KINGPIN was in chat for most of the stream. It was actually a lot of fun, and we appreciate him joining. But he did point out that this slider here, which is the adjust image settings with preview slider in the NVIDIA control panel, can be set to performance instead of quality. And then the manage 3D settings options, globally, if you have the 3D Mark program setting set to use the global settings, otherwise use the 3D Mark standalone settings and program settings. So the options in here that we want to change are the power target. So power management mode needs to be in maximum performance, and that just tells it not to throttle down for any reason. And then also you can set the texture filtering to be high performance as well. And so this is still a valid score within 3D Mark doing these things. It's considered normal tweaking. It is not changing the actual benchmark. You're not modifying 3D Mark or anything like that. It still falls within fair modifications. So that is fairly significant. That gained us like another couple hundred, maybe another 200 points in the graphics score. And that mattered quite a bit for what we were doing overall. And then for the actual scores, so we were at 14,367 after that. and that was a 15,053 graphics score with a CPU score of 11,422. Jay's most recent submission, and he's been working on beating our score since, so it might change by the time this video goes up. His most recent submission as of filming was 14,043, so we passed this one. He's at 14,884 for graphics. We're a bit ahead there, and a decent amount of that is from that settings change, because up until that point, we're about 100 points behind him. CPU scores at 10,638, so we're a bit ahead of him there as well. He called into the stream, and maybe we can drop some of that call in too. The call was because chat was telling me that Jay's newest score, 3D Mark Hall of Fame, went down because we sent too many people there. So it went down, I couldn't check. People were saying Jay's newest graphics score was 17,000 points, and I was just like, oh, okay, there's no way we can beat that. But he called in and said, no, they're lying to you, they're trolling you.
The scores that they're telling you, they're trolling you. I did not get a score in the 17,000 GPU.
I don't believe you. So this is where he sits right now. He's having CPU degradation issues. We are concerned about that as well, but so Jay's probably going to respond. He's got some graphics room where he can beat us there, and then the CPU is where he's going to have to pick up most of his points to really pull ahead. But we're still pretty close, neck and neck right now. For BIOS settings, we have a lot to improve in the memory tab, but on the CPU tab, we're at 48x for the multiplier. I know for a fact we can push the first 4 cores to 49 and still survive, and definitely the first 2. So that'll gain us some score even in the graphics department, because one thread is primarily responsible for rendering and feeding draw calls to the GPUs. So if we push 1 to 49, that will help boost scores even in the GPU department. So that's a consideration for us once we need to retaliate again. Mesh ratio, we have a 33. I think, and Jay, if I'm wrong about this, feel free to correct me in the comments if you do see the video, but I think Jay might have had a lower mesh ratio than us, and that definitely contributes to the score difference too. Mesh is a big deal on these 7980XE processors. Then for the rest, so we have extreme voltage mode enabled. We disabled the V-droop down here. VIN V-droop is off. Extreme voltage mode is on. We're pushing a VIN of 1.95. V-core, we have it only 1.30 right now. We can go up higher because cooling supports it. So we could push that higher, but we're going to keep it where it is right now because I've tried at 1.4 with 4.9 gigahertz and it doesn't hold. The mesh we have at 1.38. This is getting into territory where we're a bit concerned about degradation. I'd like it to be closer to 1.35, but it will not hold 100% of the time if we do that. And then for SA, system agent and IO voltage, we have 1.2. Those are holding pretty well. And then we have 500 offset for uncore. For memory, this is where our weakest settings are right now and where we can improve the most. So running at 1.65 volts on the DIMMs, they can handle a lot more. We can push 1.8 no problem, and we've done it before. So we have room to go there for voltage. Frequency is 4,000. Timings, we have 15, 15, 15, 28, which is pretty damn good for this kit of memory. We can't get it down to 14, unfortunately. We've tried. Everything else currently is auto, and in the past, we have used profiles that had us fine-tuning these. So in the past, with the RIP LTT stream, we had a 1528 set of primary timings. We did 4 on RRD, 6 for RRDL, and so forth. So we tuned all these, which we didn't do last night because we started to experience a lot of crashing. So this is where we stand right now. Well, actually, the previous setting was where we stand right now. But we have a few more things we can do to push that score further. So the last thing I wanted to show that I forgot about is actually our reservoir and pump mounting solution, which is a block of spare wood, 2 clamps, and then some screws to hold that in just so it didn't tip over during the stream. We've got this hooked up to longer pipes than necessary so that it can route everything into an ice box if we want to later. So that's our next big move. For the motherboard, the VRM is doing fine. The X299 Dark has these VRM fans on it, so it runs really well. It's the best cooled VRM in X299 that we've tested. So we might want to add a fan, though, just via like a, I don't know, a bendable arm or something over the memory modules, because those start getting hot toward the end of the stream. But they seem fine. I think they're within spec. Memory can take a lot of heat. So that's the bench, that's the settings, everything. A lot of fun on the stream. Of course, our thanks to KINGPIN for joining in, and in that call, I passed all that info to Jay in fairness, so he's got it too. He can respond, probably beat our score now. We'll see, though. You can follow Jay or us on Twitter to get updates of this live. He's been tweeting about CPU degradation, and we've been interacting with him there. But otherwise, I think Paul is going to jump in soon. So, Paul, open invitation to join this battle. And Linus, we already know that you threw in the flag last time, but you know, if you feel like picking it back up, by which I mean if Alex feels like picking it back up, then feel free to join as well. Otherwise, we were in talks with KINGPIN and EVGA about potentially either us flying out there or them flying here. Probably I'd go there to California and join KINGPIN and Jay and maybe Paul or someone else in EVGA HQ, and we can do like a final OC battle there with KINGPIN overseeing it all. Because really, as we said in the stream, so he says, I'm so lonely. That's sad. That's actually really sad. It's kind of sad. KINGPIN said it's lonely at the top. He gets lonely up there where he's so good now that he's not even part of the competition anymore. If he's first, we just consider second place to be first. Because it's not fair. Roboclocker does all the work for him these days. He just sits back and watches it go. So with a closed loop liquid nitrogen setup, how are we going to compete? And so the way he decided to stay in the game, keep himself entertained, is to, on a day after his birthday no less, join into a 4-hour live stream chat and then puppet master Jay and myself against each other. So he can make his pawns battle each other because he no longer has anything he needs to do to win first place in anything at this point. So a lot of fun doing all that with everyone. Thank you for joining. And of course, you can subscribe for more. Go to store.gamersnexus.net to help us out directly there because the store directly supports our live streams and ability to do them, or patreon.com/gamersnexus. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time.